Is the G7 as powerful as they want you to believe? What if we told you that BRICS has already overtaken the G7 and the West is too scared to admit it? BRICS managed to surpass the G7 in global influence without you even noticing, and all thanks to the media not screaming about it. People don't even know that BRICS controls nearly half the world's population and 41% of the world's oil production. So, why are we still pretending the G7 is the global leader when BRICS is dominating in every key area? Let's find out. When discussing economic power, the first thing that usually comes to mind is GDP. However, not all GDP measurements are created equal. The one that matters most in this conversation is GDP by purchasing power parity PPP, a metric that adjusts for price level differences between countries. It gives us a clearer picture of what people can buy with their income and the real economic value being generated within countries. And here's the bombshell. BRICS nations now account for 32% of global GDP, or PPP, while the G7 lags at 29%. This isn't just a symbolic milestone. It's the beginning of a new economic reality. To understand how BRICS managed to leapfrog the G7, we need to look at the specific dynamics driving this shift. Countries such as China, Africa, and India have been expanding at breakneck speed for the past few decades. China's strategic focus on infrastructure development, manufacturing, and export-driven growth has been instrumental in building its economic empire. South African trade has been contributing to BRICS a great deal. India, meanwhile, has emerged as a global leader in technology and services, with its vast and youthful workforce powering industries from IT to pharmaceuticals. So, what sets BRICS apart is its ability to generate real, tangible wealth. Unlike the G7, which often relies on financial speculation and services, BRICS economies are rooted in production, whether it's manufacturing in China, energy in Russia, or agriculture in Brazil. This kind of economic output has a much greater long-term impact, creating value that doesn't just exist on paper, but in the real world. The G7 may still dominate in nominal GDP, but nominal GDP doesn't tell the whole story. The purchasing power of BRICS nations reflects their ability to sustain economic growth without relying on the crutches that have propped up the West for so long. But let's not forget the significance of their latest expansion. With the UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran now joining BRICS, the economic powerhouse has only grown stronger. These countries bring resources, trade routes, and strategic influence that further solidify BRICS dominance. The G7's grip on the global economy is loosening, and BRICS is more than ready to take the reins. From an economic sovereignty standpoint, the shift in GDP PPP signals a broader rejection of Western dominance. BRICS nations are no longer content to play by the rules of a system designed by and for the West. Instead, they are creating their economic networks, bypassing the G7's influence and forging new alliances with each other. This is economic independence on a scale the world hasn't seen since the end of colonialism. With BRICS taking the lead in GDP, the next question is, how does their population size give them an even bigger advantage on the global stage? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Numbers don't lie. With the recent expansion of BRICS, this bloc now represents 45% of the global population, nearly half of humanity. That's a staggering statistic, and one that can't be ignored. Population size matters in the global economy for one very simple reason. It translates into economic potential. The more people you have, the larger your workforce, and the larger your consumer base. It's as simple as that. Take China and India, for example. Combined, they account for more than a third of the global population. These two nations alone are driving global demand in ways the G7 countries simply can't. Their middle classes are expanding rapidly, creating a consumer base that dwarfs anything in the West. These consumers are not only buying goods produced in their own countries, but they're also contributing to a growing demand for imports, which strengthens trade partnerships across the global South. Moreover, BRICS' large and youthful populations give them an edge in terms of innovation and productivity. While the G7 nations grapple with aging populations and shrinking workforces, BRICS is benefiting from a demographic dividend. Young, dynamic workforces in countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa are more adaptable to technological changes, more innovative, and more capable of driving future growth. The G7, with its aging population, is struggling to maintain the same levels of productivity and innovation. But it's not just about economics. With a larger share of the global population comes greater political influence. BRICS nations are increasingly using their population advantage to push for greater representation in international institutions like the United Nations and the IMF. They are demanding a voice that reflects their economic and demographic weight. And as the G7 countries continue to shrink in both economic and demographic terms, their ability to shape global policy will inevitably wane. With such a significant population advantage, BRICS is also flexing its muscles in another crucial area, oil production. How has BRICS taken the lead in global oil production? Energy is the lifeblood of the global economy, and BRICS is now in the driver's seat when it comes to oil production. With the UAE joining the bloc, BRICS controls 41% of global oil production, nearly half of the world's supply. This isn't just an economic advantage, it's a geopolitical game-changer. For decades, the G7, particularly the United States, used its dominance over global energy markets to exert political and economic influence around the world. Control over oil meant control over everything from trade routes to diplomatic relations. But now, with BRICS in control of the majority of the world's oil, that balance of power has shifted. Russia, one of the world's top oil producers, plays a key role in BRICS energy dominance. Despite Western sanctions, Russia has continued to pump oil, and it's finding willing buyers among BRICS nations and their allies. China and India, the two largest energy consumers in BRICS, have been eager to secure long-term oil deals with Russia and other BRICS members. These partnerships are undermining the West's attempts to isolate Russia and are creating a new energy order that bypasses the G7. Moreover, BRICS is strategically aligning itself with other major energy players like Saudi Arabia. While Saudi Arabia isn't officially a member of BRICS yet, it's clear that the kingdom is looking to strengthen its ties with the bloc. With the UAE now part of BRICS and Saudi Arabia investing billions into partnerships with BRICS countries, the energy markets are being redefined. The petrodollar, once the cornerstone of global energy markets, is being challenged as more countries look to trade oil in currencies other than the US dollar. The shift in oil production power is a direct challenge to the West's hegemony. For years, the G7 used its control over energy markets to shape global politics in its favor. But BRICS, with its control over a vast share of the world's oil, is now in a position to set the terms. This isn't just about economics, it's about who gets to call the shots on the global stage. With BRICS controlling the energy markets, the next thing you need to know is: how are they driving global economic growth, and what does that mean for the future? According to the IMF, BRICS now contributes 44% to global economic growth, while the G7 manages just 20%. That's a staggering gap, and it's only getting wider. This isn't a coincidence. It's the result of deliberate, long-term planning by BRICS nations, who are focused on real, sustainable growth. The G7, on the other hand, is bogged down by political gridlock, aging infrastructure, and mounting debt. Their economies are developed to the point where growth is slow and difficult to achieve. In contrast, BRICS countries are still in the process of building. They're investing heavily in infrastructure, technology, and education, all of which fuel long-term economic growth. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a perfect example of how BRICS is thinking ahead, building trade networks and infrastructure that will benefit not only BRICS nations, but also the countries they partner with. In contrast, the G7's economies are struggling to maintain momentum. The US, for example, faces significant political polarization and economic inequality, which are slowing its growth potential. Europe, too, is grappling with an aging population and economic stagnation. BRICS, on the other hand, is young, dynamic, and growing fast. So, is BRICS the new global leader? BRICS isn't just an economic bloc, it's a movement. A movement toward a multipolar world where power isn't concentrated in the hands of a few Western nations, but is shared among countries that represent the majority of the world's people. This is the future of global leadership, and BRICS is at the forefront. So, now that you know BRICS has surpassed the G7, what role does the G7 even have left to play? Can the G7 ever regain its dominance, or is BRICS destined to lead the next century? Let us know in the comments section. Are you prepared to live in a world where BRICS dictates the terms of trade, growth, and resources? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, the economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.